Hey bookworms, it's Jade from Bedtime Bookworm and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you my book diary for part 3 of Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. So if this is the first time you're seeing one of my book diaries, it's basically a really spoilery reading vlog and very in-depth reading vlog, which is why it's so long. I basically update you guys every few chapters on my thoughts on things that are happening and my theories and all of my feelings. I had so much fun at making these, and I know that at least some people enjoy watching them. I do have a playlist of book diaries. I have these for a lot of the books in the Stormlight series. Not all of them. I think I started about halfway through book 2. And I will eventually be posting ones for part 4 and part 5 of Rhythm of War as well, because I have them all filmed. I filmed my whole reading journey with Rhythm of War, and I'm so glad that I did because it's really fun to rewatch these as I'm editing them and revisit all of my feelings. As always, I have timestamps in the description box for basically some chapter breakdowns so that you guys can jump to different chapters if you are reading along as you watch. But definitely be careful of spoilers. This whole video is full of spoilers for part 3, so don't watch the chapters that you haven't read yet. Similarly, be careful in the comment section not to spoil anything that is past part 3 of Rhythm of War, or if I'm like theorizing or something, don't correct me unless it's something that we know. I'm just telling you my theories and things as I had them, and they are definitely not always right. Alright guys, that's enough of an intro. Here are my thoughts on part 3 of Rhythm of War. So it is a different day, but one thing that I remembered that I forgot to mention before I ended my last clip is the whole thing about being suspicious of Pattern and Pattern being the spy. Maybe I'm being naive, but I don't believe it. There's no way. I love Pattern. He's my favorite Spren. I can't believe that he's the spy. There's gotta be something else going on. I feel like maybe it's another one of the Spren, maybe, but not Pattern. It can't be Pattern. Please don't let Pattern be the spy. I love Pattern. Okay, that's my last and final thought on the ending of part 2. Okay, so I have read a good chunk. I actually did a live reading sprint with my friend Elliot Brooks tonight, so I couldn't film while I was reading. So I read the 3 interludes, and then I started part 3, and I read through chapter 47. So interludes. I gotta admit, when we first see the name of the first interlude, Vyre, and we see the character Vyre, I totally forgot that that was like Moash's new name, so it took me a second to realize that that was Moash. It was kind of an interesting chapter to see how much he has kind of bonded with Odium. I am starting to think that Moash / Vyre is gonna end up being Odium's champion. Definitely just a guess, but I think it's a possibility that Odium is grooming Moash to be his champion. And then at the end of the chapter, they talk about trying to break Kaladin, and he tells Odium that they should send him visions, and then Moash will try to use those visions to bring him to the brink, step up to the ledge, and find a way to make him jump. Dang it, Moash. I don't like you. And then the next interlude was from Lift's point of view. I love Lift. She's so funny, and I love her interaction with Wendell. Wendell is like maybe my third favorite Spren. I would definitely say that I like Syl better than Wendell, but I really like Wendell. He's so funny. Anyways, we realize that Lift is running around the tower, and this is like right when the attack happens, and she doesn't pass out, so she's one of the like super strong Radiants, I guess. / there's also just like other things that are weird about Lift. She's like not fully in the physical realm, I think she's like, I don't know, somehow partially lives in the cognitive realm or something. But either way, she doesn't go unconscious whenever all the Radiants do, but she gets caught by this person who I don't know who he is. He has a chicken. There was something about she grabbed a chicken and bit a chunk out of it and then tried to heal it, and then this chicken went and found a dead man and like curled up with it because the chicken knew the dead man, or at least knew where he was. And then there's another guy who's like down the hallway who has another chicken. I really don't understand what these chickens are about. Lift does say, "You are no ordinary chicken. Are you a Voidbringer chicken?" And Wendell says, "Why do you insist on using that word? It's horribly inaccurate." I love Wendell. She sees a man, and it's not a fused or a Voidbringer. She asks Wendell if he recognizes him, and he says, "I believe I've seen him before, a minor Alethi functionary, though his eyes are different now." Is that because he's been taken over by, like, Voidspren? Curious. Look at his fingers. Tan skin with bands of lighter skin. He was wearing jewelry once. Yes, thinking about it, she thought she recognized him, one of the old people in the tower. Retired, once an important official in the palace. She'd gone and talked to him because nobody paid attention to old people. That was the one that was dead. And then the one that she sees down the hallway, it says, "Something flowed from that darkness. A man, tall with scarred features. He wore an Alethi uniform, but she swore she'd never seen him before. She would recognize a man this dangerous. Those eyes seemed to be part of the darkness, deep in shadow as he stepped into the light. On his shoulders sat the green chicken from before, its wicked claws gripping a patch of leather affixed to the uniform. Little Radiant, the man said, I'll admit, I've always wanted an excuse to hunt you." She clutched her red chicken and started running. The man behind her laughed, as if he'd been given the grandest of gifts. So, it's a little scary. I don't know who this man is, but why did he want an excuse to chase her, and why is he laughing like an evil maniac? And Lift is running with her chicken, which, what is up with these chickens? She's running from him, but she can't use her, like, slickness power. That one's being suppressed by the weapon or whatever. Is she gonna get away? I don't know. I'm so worried about my little Lift. Oh, and also in that interlude, we learn what she actually asked for from the Night Watcher. We actually learn that she also, just like Dalinar, didn't actually meet with the Night Watcher, or like that she did, but Cultivation came and is the one who granted her curse and boon or whatever, just like for Dalinar's. But what she asked from the Night Watcher / Cultivation was to never change. What was the exact wording? Okay, that was the exact wording. She said, "I asked not to change," Lift whispered, opening her eyes. "I said, when everything else is going wrong, I want to be the same. I want to stay me, not become someone else." And it has something to do with the fact that Lift's mom died. I guess she got sick and died. She says, if she saw me now, she wouldn't recognize me. Like, she didn't want to change because she wanted her mother, who is now dead, to always be able to recognize her, and that's kind of sad. And then we get to Taravangian's interlude. He meets with Odium again. He finally pulls the trigger on his betrayal of Dalinar with the Yakaved soldiers. There was some interesting stuff when he was meeting with Odium and the conversation that they had. This was mentioned in a previous book, but there is this dark spot in the diagram / in like the future that Odium can see around Renarin. I guess Renarin is like an unpredictable factor in all of this, which I think is super fascinating, and I'm so interested in Renarin. But this time he also notices that Taravangian himself is somehow like close to that dark spot. So it seems like Taravangian could possibly do something to change the future. And also Seth is in that area of the vision that Odium is showing him. And Taravangian realizes that Odium, while he has the power of a god, he has the mind of a human, and that even though he can see the future, it's not perfect. People can still make choices and change things. And the way the chapter ends, it says Taravangian had decided not to give up, and it seems like maybe he'd be willing to betray Odium. Like, he does still go through with the plan to betray Dalinar because he wants to save his city and everything, but maybe he thinks that now that that's done, he can do something to help Dalinar. I don't know. And then chapter 44 was in Kaladin's point of view. It was a very tense chapter because the pursuer was like close to finding him a couple of times, but the siblings saved Kaladin. It like lit up a little gemstone and showed him where to infuse some stormlight so that he could open a door in the wall, but that was a really tense moment, and I'm so glad that he was able to find safety. Then in chapter 45, we finally get a flashback. We haven't had any flashbacks so far this book, which has been kind of crazy. So we see Eshonai discovering humans, which was really cool because we knew that she had discovered the humans, but we actually see the scene. And then we also see from Venli's point of view, where she basically is going to go with her mom to announce that she thinks she can discover Warform, but her thunder is stolen by her sister discovering the humans. And then 46 is a Navani chapter, and I think it's super interesting that Raboniel is so interested in the science and stuff, and they kind of trade, not secrets, but Navani tells Raboniel how the airship thing works, and Raboniel tells her something really interesting. Navani said, "You understand more about fabrials than I assumed, Lady of Wishes." Raboniel hummed a rhythm. "I am a quick learner." She gestured to the notes on Navani's desk. "In the past, my kind found it difficult to persuade Spren to manifest themselves in the physical realm as devices. It seems void Spren are not as naturally self-sacrificing as those of honor or cultivation." So it sounds like in the past, the fabrials that were in the tower, like the pumps, the climbing mechanisms, they didn't have gemstones with captive spren. They were like actually spren that manifested in the human world. And that's also the answer to soul casting devices. I guess soulcasters don't hold spren, they are spren. So that was really interesting. And then Raboniel later says, "This is how we end the war, Navani," Raboniel said, standing, "with information shared. And this ends the war how? By showing everyone that our lives will all be improved by working together, with the singers ruling." "Of course," Raboniel said. "You are obviously a keen scholar, Navani Colon." So Raboniel wants them to work together and stop the war, but still have the singers be in charge. That made me laugh. It's probably not really that funny, but it made me laugh. And then Kaladin has another nightmare. I don't know if the previous nightmares he's been having were from Odium or not, but after seeing Moash's interlude, and at the end of that, he basically says that Odium and Moash are going to work together to send him more nightmares. I am sure that the one he has in this chapter is sent by Odium and Moash and meant to, like, help break Kaladin, which is very sad. And then chapter 47 was a Dalinar point of view, which was good because we hadn't seen from him in a while. Nail shows up, and I was super shocked because Nail, right when he shows up, someone shoots him through the forehead with an arrow, and I was like, what? Like, I thought he literally had just died, and Dalinar was like, wait, I want to hear what he has to say, and he pulls out the arrow and then heals himself, and I was like, oh, okay, so he's fine. But I definitely was really shocked when that happened. Anyways, then Nail says some things and then tries to attack Dalinar again, and Seth tries to stop him, but Stormfather tells Dalinar to touch Nail. And he does, and then he sees all these flashes of Nail's past, which I definitely don't understand all of that. But you see a bunch of flashes of Nail's past, and then it says, "The vision faded and Nail lurched away from Dalinar, gasping, his eyes wide. He left a line of light stretching between him and Dalinar. Bondsmith," the Stormfather said in Dalinar's mind. "You forged a brief connection with him. What did you see?" "His past, I think." And then Dalinar sees a skeletal figure overlapping Nail, like the echo of light that had followed Seth, only worn and dim, which I think has something to do with a cognitive shadow. I don't really understand that term, but I've seen it thrown around by people, and I think it has to do with someone who's like died and been brought back to life, which I think all of the heralds have. So he can like see that now. I don't know why he couldn't see that before. And then Dalinar sees 8 lines of light extending from Nail into the distance. "I see the Oath Pack, I think," Dalinar said, "the thing that bound them together and made them capable of holding the enemy in damnation. A cage forged of their spirits," the Stormfather said in his mind. "It was broken, even before Yezrian's death. They shattered it by what they did long ago. No, only one line is completely broken." I think that's Yezrian's line, because he's supposedly totally dead. "The rest are there, but weak, impotent, except one still vibrant." What line is that? And then Nail rips free of the line connecting him to Dalinar and throws him off the platform. Then Stormfather says, "You wield the power of gods, Dalinar. I once thought I knew the extent of your abilities. I have abandoned that ignorant supposition." And Dalinar wonders if he could reforge the Oath Pack. Stormfather says he doesn't know, or if it would even be wise. The heralds suffer for what they did. And the chapter ends with Dalinar thinking that he needs to understand his powers. He needed to find a way to use his powers to solve this war, reforge the Oath Pack, or, barring that, find another solution. One that included binding Odium once and for all. Okay, I am caught up on my thoughts through 47. Time to read some more. Okay, I just finished chapter 49, and I'm so tired I'm about to go to bed. But I needed to check in real quick because this was a really fun chapter, really exciting chapter. Basically, Navani and Kaladin were able to get in touch through the sibling. I'm so excited for where this is going to lead because it's like a glimmer of hope. Kaladin was able to get Stormlight and supplies and things that he needed, and now they have a plan. Navani wants him to go check out the Oath Gates and try and figure out how they're being used. And even though the sibling doesn't totally trust Navani yet, they're working together. The only thing I'm kind of concerned about is Navani knows that Lift is in the tower somewhere, but the sibling said that the last time she saw Lift, she was in a cage, and she said that they probably surrounded her with something that I didn't recognize. She was in a cage, and I suspect they surrounded her with Ralcolest. What is Ralcolest? It's written like a noun. It's not capitalized or anything. I don't know what it is, but I guess whatever it is, it's keeping the sibling from seeing Lift. But I hope she's okay. It sounds like maybe she got caught by that guy with the chicken. I hope not. But either way, I am really excited with the way that chapter went. I wish I could read more, but I'm sleepy, so I gotta go to bed. Tomorrow. 52 was a flashback chapter, and who is this Axendweth that gives Venli this mysterious red glowing gemstone? So it sounds like it has void light in it, and I'm guessing this somehow helps her figure out how to get war form or something. Who is this person? She seems to know more than she should. Maybe she's one of the heralds? Why would she be kind of like on the bad side? I don't know. Very curious. Other things in this chapter, it was kind of sad to see Venli's mom start to lose her memories and stuff. And then in the chapter before this, it was like present day Venli. I was kind of surprised to find out that she's been planning a small, not necessarily rebellion, but a small group of people to run away as soon as they get a chance. I didn't know she was doing that, or if I did know that, I had forgotten, so that was kind of exciting. Okay, chapter 53. I was so concerned when Venli found out that the pursuer basically had Kaladin's family hostage and was planning on hurting them. Oh, my heart. I was so nervous, but I'm so happy that Venli went to talk to Leshwi, and I don't really understand why Leshwi wants to protect them. Like, I get that she has some sort of territorial thing around Kaladin, but whatever the reason is, I'm so appreciative that she doesn't want to kill Kaladin's family and wants to protect them. I hope her plan works and that the pursuer stays away from them, but I'm very nervous for Kaladin's family right now. Oh man, I just finished 57. It was a flashback chapter. That was so interesting. So Venli takes the gemstone that the human, the mysterious human, gave her and goes into the storm and breaks it. And I guess Voidspren says that it needs to join her, be inside her for a while, and like see how Roshar is, and that they'll do great things together eventually. There was a Voidspren mentioned earlier that she had kind of been working with. So I guess like later it leaves her body. Like I don't think it's in her body now. But apparently it was like directing her for a really long time, like 8 years or whatever. The whole time in the Stormlight Archive series, she's been kind of being controlled by this other Voidspren, because when she comes back, she starts talking and sounds different, smiles uncharacteristically, and even is like talking without using any rhythms. And Ash and I asked her, where are your rhythms? And then she starts doing it after that. So like this Voidspren thing that took over her kind of like really changes her. Super interesting. Okay, so I'm doing some weekend morning / early afternoon reading. I'm all cozy in my robe on the couch. I just finished chapter 59, and holy crap, what an exciting chapter. That was some really intense action in that chapter, and I had so much fun reading that. That was really awesome. I'm really glad that Kaladin was able to outsmart the pursuer, and then also he was able to destroy that node, because that fused lady, whose name I am forgetting, was corrupting the sibling some more, but also that weakens the shield, so that's kind of nerve-wracking, but it's better that he destroyed it than for the fuse to be able to corrupt the sibling more than it already has been. So hopefully they don't find more of them. Ooh, I'm kind of nervous about that, but we'll just have to see what happens. But yeah, that was like a really awesome chapter. I loved the fight scene, and seeing Kaladin thinking on his feet and using his powers differently, because obviously the gravitational lashings aren't working, was super interesting. And then at the end, that fused lady, she stabs Kaladin and his healing is gotten slower. I'm guessing that has to do with the corruption that she's done with the sibling and the fact that he just weakened the shield, so I think that has slowed his healing even further, which is a little bit scary, but I'm excited to see where the rest of this goes and how Kaladin's gonna get out of this. Oh, actually, it was really cool seeing people get excited seeing him, and there was one interaction that Kaladin had with someone in the tower, like a regular person, that I really loved, and I wanted to read it to you guys if I can find it. Okay, here it is. So this guy that Kaladin runs into, he, says, Bright Lord Stormblessed, and gets, excited to see him, and then he says, Radiant, how? How do you still fight? And this part is the part that gave me chills. The same way you do, Kaladin said, one day at a time, always taking the next step. Don't get yourself killed, but also don't give up hope. Oh, I love that. That was really good. Anyways, time to do more reading. I'm so excited for this part of the book that I'm in. It's been really good. I just finished chapter 60, and it was another really good chapter. Part 3 is going really well. In this chapter, Venli goes to visit Rlain, which I don't think I popped in earlier when Venli found out that Rlain was alive, but I was definitely excited in that moment. And then in this chapter, they have a really good chat. I was so frustrated when Timber was encouraging Venli to reveal herself as a Radiant to Rlain, and she didn't because she's a scaredy cat. Rlain would be the perfect person to reveal that to. So I was frustrated that she didn't do that. But Rlain definitely talked some sense into her, and I love Rlain. And I love that he got so excited that Venli saved Kaladin's family, and he says that he needs to go and meet with Hasina because he has something important to show her, and that he'd show Venli as well. I'm very curious what that is. And then so Venli goes to Raboniel and asks to have Rlain released into her care, and surprisingly, Raboniel says yes. I'm excited to see where that goes. Then at the end of the chapter, Venli tries to say the next ideal, but the words are rejected because she just saw Lift, who was in a cage, which was mentioned previously, but I guess that guy who was chasing her with the chicken caught Lift, put her in a cage, and then he had a meeting with Raboniel and gave Lift to Raboniel. I'm really confused about who this guy is. At first, when he was talking to Raboniel and I didn't realize he had Lift, I was like, is that Mraize? Because he was talking about a Babsk, but Mraize doesn't have this weird chicken thing. But now Lift is in Raboniel's custody. That's so scary, but it sounds like maybe Venli's gonna try and free her, which is really exciting. So I'm really loving Venli's character arc because she is slowly but surely changing and becoming more Radiant-like, but it's not overnight either, which totally makes sense. She has such a complicated past, and she kind of has been a selfish person, and she's slowly changing, and I'm loving seeing that change. Okay, 61 was also a really good chapter. Such interesting reveals. Navani is talking to Raboniel and finds out about the different kinds of light. And I forgot to mention this in the last chapter, but whoever turned in Lift mentioned that Raboniel should ask Cultivation whenever they find her why she created a Radiant who can use life light, and that was the first time that we'd heard that term before, but that explains why Lift can metabolize food into Stormlight. It's not actually Stormlight, it's something called Life Light, and it's, I guess, the light that comes directly from Cultivation. So I guess Odium, Cultivation, and Honor each have their own type of light. Honor has Stormlight, Cultivation has Life Light, and Odium has Void Light, obviously. And then Raboniel reveals that the tower, it uses a special kind of light that is a mix of Life Light and Stormlight because the sibling is basically a direct child of Honor and Cultivation, which was super cool to learn. But now they have to figure out, or Navani needs to figure out how to make more life light or how to fix whatever's wrong, because the tower used to be able to, I guess, create and use life light on its own. Not life light. I think they called it tower light, but for some reason it's not working right now. So she's going to try to fix that, but she's also trying to convince the sibling to tell her where the other nodes are so that she can misdirect the bad guys from it, because once the bad guys find the nodes, there's really not a way to protect the sibling other than to destroy the nodes, and that's obviously not ideal. So Navani feels like the only way to protect the nodes is to know where they are and to misdirect the fused. But the sibling still does not trust Navani all the way, doesn't trust humans all the way, and that's not good. The humans need to gain her trust. Alright, that's it for now, and I'll check in later. Okay, I just finished chapter 64, I mean. Most of it I wasn't super interested in. Yasna fighting. Sure, it's cool, but also not that exciting. She had some conversations with Wit. Wit is always interesting, but the really interesting part was at the end of the chapter. Wit tells her that basically they've been spied on. One of his, what he thought was a pen, was not really a pen, it was a Kremling. So they were being spied on by the Sleepless, who we have met a few times, but not delved very much into. The first time I really remember meeting the Sleepless was in Edge Dancer. It might have been mentioned in the couple books previously, but I don't really remember. But I know in Edge Dancer we met them, and then again in Dawn Shard we got to know a lot more about the Sleepless. It's interesting that they're showing up again. Apparently they have been spying on Yasna, and Wit says something interesting. He says he's going to write warnings to all the people he's communicated with. The bright side is that I don't think any of the Sleepless are working with Odium. Yasna had only recently learned that the Sleepless were anything other than a myth. It had taken meeting a friendly one, seeing with her own eyes that an entity could somehow be made up of thousands of Kremlings working in concert, for her to accept their existence. And then later, Wit says, but Yasna, I know at least one of them has thrown their lot in with the Ghostbloods. And then he says, I believe it's time that I told you about Thydakar. Yasna says, I know of him, and Wit says, oh, you think you do, but I've met him several times on other planets, Yasna. The Ghostbloods are not a Rosharan organization, and I don't think you appreciate the danger they represent. What? That was kind of mind-blowing. I don't know who this Thydakar is, like, at all. I don't recognize that name at all. But the Ghostbloods are not a Rosharan organization? I mean, it makes sense, because Mraize knows so much more about everything. About Shadesmar, about gemstones with light, and, like, trying to make commerce out of sneaking gems with Stormlight out of Shadesmar. I don't even know if I'm putting that into words correctly, but it makes sense. Mraize seems to know a lot of things, but I'm very shocked, and I'm concerned that Wit said that Yasna doesn't appreciate the threat they pose, and I'm concerned because Shallan obviously doesn't understand, and she's been semi-working with them for a long time, and that was very interesting. Okay, I just finished chapter 67. 66 was a Dalinar chapter. He went to go visit Taravangian, and they had a really interesting conversation. They always have really interesting conversations. I was kind of sad when Taravangian was like, just kill me. I've served my purpose, which I'm a little confused about, just because it sounded from the end of the last chapter he was in, or I guess it was an interlude of his, because it was from his point of view. He seemed like he had like a new hope because of all of that stuff about Renarin being kind of like a black spot in Odium's, what he could see of the future and stuff. But anyways, he was like, just kill me, Dalinar. And I loved when Dalinar was like, nope, I'm not gonna kill you, I'm gonna prove you wrong, and I'm gonna make sure you're there to see it. And Taravangian's like, okay, well that would make me happy too. So like, I was kind of happy with the outcome of that conversation. And then 67 was from Bentley's point of view, and we got to see her use her radiant powers, which are really cool. So I guess she can manipulate stone, kind of like Dalinar can. But I don't know, she was using Void Light and not Stormlight. I don't know how all that works. So how is she different from the Voidbringers, the ones that have the form that can walk through the stone? Like, she doesn't have the same form as them, but she has the same ability, especially because she was also using Void Light to do it. I don't know. I don't get it, but it was cool that she could do that. Okay, I just finished 68, which was a flashback from Eshonai's point of view, and it's where we see how they finally discover Warform, which was cool. I'm liking these flashbacks. They're definitely like fleshing out Parshendi and how they got to where they are today, but I also don't have like a ton of thoughts on them. But that chapter reminded me of something I forgot to say about the previous chapter when Venli was practicing her powers. There was all that stuff about hearing a tone and singing a song with the stones. It sounded like it was the stones themselves and they were kind of like attuning to the same rhythm, but it made me wonder about how the sibling has also been talking about how she's lost a tone and that it's the reason why her light isn't working and stuff. I don't know. I don't think that the things that were talking to Venli were the sibling. I feel like Kate Redding used a similar voice for it, but I thought that the text actually said that it wasn't the sibling, but I'm not sure. But either way, they were talking about this tone thing, and the stone said something like, I'm not gonna pull it up right now, but something like, welcome back, listeners. It sounds like maybe the old Parshendi were the ones who created Urithiru in the first place. I don't know. I feel like something about the tone that she found is important for the sibling, but I don't know how yet. I just finished 69, and it was such a good chapter. I love all of this science and experiments with the different kinds of light, and Navani has figured out that there are 3 tones of Roshar, possibly 2, and Odium's tone is like not a real one, according to the sibling. I'm not sure, but I love all of this sciencey stuff and experiments. For those of you who are watching and don't know, I have a science background. I am a scientist. I work in genetics. Obviously not Stormlight science, but I really appreciate all of that and all of the musical stuff too. It's just such a cool combination of things. So Navani convinces the sibling to tell her where one of her nodes is, which is really good progress, and they come up with a plan to try and protect it, but before they're able to do anything, Parshendi find it. And that's how that chapter ended, so that's nerve-wracking. I don't know if Kaladin's going to be able to get to it on time. I don't know if Navani's going to be able to distract Raboniel. The other thing that was really interesting in that chapter is I had kind of guessed that maybe Navani would win over the trust of the sibling and that the sibling would bond her and she'd be the new bondsmith. But in this chapter, Navani suggests what if the sibling bonds one of the Parshendi, since she has such a distrust of humans. And she suggests that the sibling bonds with Relaine because he is on their side and he wants to be a Knights Radiant. And that is a very interesting idea. Sibling's not totally on board, of course. It did make me wonder if maybe Venli would end up bonding with the sibling, but Venli already has a Radiant Spren, so I feel like probably not. So if it is going to be one of the Parshendi, it probably is going to be Relaine. But I don't know. I still feel like in the end, Navani might win over the sibling's trust and she will decide to bond with her. But the sibling said she can't bond with anybody while her light's not working, so they need to fix that first. Okay, on to the next chapter. Oh my gosh, I just finished part 3. It was a good ending, but I don't know why I'm smiling so much because it's kind of a stressful ending. Okay, so chapter 71 from Dalinar's point of view, and he was like riding the storm, and I realized he was gonna go to Urithiru. I had this idea, this guess, that he was gonna see Kaladin, because we knew that Kaladin had gone out into storm at the end of his chapter, and I had got this idea that he was gonna see Kaladin and he was like going to somehow create a perpendicularity from inside the vision and save him. That's not exactly what happened, but he did save Kaladin, so that's really good. And I'm really glad that Dalinar now knows what's going on inside the tower, because that was stressful, him not knowing what was really going on. And then 72, Navani's chapter. Okay, so when at the end of the last POV we had from Navani, she said that she figured something out, she had a really bad feeling or whatever. I thought that she was thinking that Kaladin was walking into a trap, which he kind of did, right? So that's what I thought she was talking about. But it turns out that Raboniel has been listening in on her conversations with the sibling the whole time. And when Navani finally convinced the sibling to tell her where the third node was. She basically betrayed the sibling unknowingly. I mean, it's not her fault. She didn't know. How was Rabonio listening without the sibling knowing? Anyways, that's really frustrating that this has probably not only made the sibling weaker and more corrupted, but now she's not going to trust Navani even more. I was surprised when that was revealed because that's not what I thought had happened. Anyways, that is the end of part 3, and I will see you guys in the next video. Alright guys, there you have it. Those are my spoilery thoughts on part 3 of Rhythm of War. Hopefully you guys enjoyed hearing some of my thoughts and reactions. I always like to end these videos talking about some of my favorite moments in this section, and it's definitely hard to pick out specific moments. I feel like I say that every time. There was just so much to love in this section. This is what I want to say, this is one of my favorite sections, but I feel like 2, 3, 4, and 5 were all my favorites. I don't know. I really enjoyed learning more about the sibling and getting more interaction with the sibling, and not only with Navani, but also with Kaladin and how the sibling was able to like help him with stuff, and Kaladin trying to stay hidden while people are looking for him was definitely really tense. There were a lot of tense moments in this book when it comes to Kaladin and his survival. I was also really enjoying Raboniel in this section and how interested in the science she was and her interactions with Navani. And then of course I loved all of the world building reveals. I feel like Rhythm of War in general, there's just so many world building reveals, but in this section the world building reveals that really stood out to me was learning about the different lights, the different type of lights, and learning that Lift uses life light, and there's such a thing as tower light, all the different kinds of light. I just thought it was fascinating and so cool to finally learn about them. Alright guys, I think that's all I have for this video. Let me know down in the comment section what some of your favorite parts about part 3 were, because there's definitely a lot of good scenes in this section. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content. That is all I have for now. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bookworms, keep reading. Bye.